A hot topic in our community right now is around the idea that mood manifests and that you can't be sad or unhappy in any way or your manifestation won't come into the physical world. So one of the things that I would love to talk to you guys about today is the idea of emotions, how they impact your manifestations, and why I think this toxic positivity isn't necessarily serving us in the manifestation world. I have a beautiful experience that I lived through in 2022 that taught me a very, very powerful lesson when it comes to manifestation and the power of emotions. I manifested for 2 years phenomenal things. I was always happy. I was always positive. I maintained myself in a high vibe every day as much as I possibly could. I built a very, very empowered self-identity and concept, and I became that version of myself, and I acted as if I was her for 2 years. I built an $18 million business in under 2 years. I flourished. My book was written. It went bestseller. All kinds of beautiful, phenomenal manifestations came into the physical world from being high vibe, but more importantly, from creating this empowered self-concept and identity. And then 2022 came. And at the beginning of 2022, my marriage separated. And I also had a large group of staff members or team members on my team leave at one time. These people were very, very dear friends of mine, and I had built phenomenal relationships with them. And they left suddenly to really not even speak to them again. So I had this marriage separation, kind of this separation from members of my team. Everything just felt like it was almost falling apart at one time. And what I chose to do in that moment was to go to the idea that, well, as long as I remain happy, as long as I remain positive, I will still manifest everything that I want. Unfortunately, I got a beautiful awareness and realization because I ended up sick by April of 2022. And by April of 2022, I was in the hospital with pneumonia after being at my retreat in the Bahamas. And the doctor in the hospital was surprised that I was even alive. My organs were starting to shut down. My right lung was the size of a little coin. It had completely collapsed. Things just weren't going well. And within 24 hours of getting to that hospital, I had to have emergency lung surgery. One of the most painful experiences of my life and emotional experiences. Nobody talks about, people talk about the physical pain associated with the knife of surgery, but nobody actually discusses the emotional pain that comes with the knife of surgery. And so that was a very low, dark place in my life. But as I was coming out from under it, I was looking for awarenesses. Why did this happen for me? Why did I experience this? What is the learning? What is the growth? And one day, somebody had said to me, have you ever read Louise Hay, How to Heal Your Life? And I was like, I did look at that before. And they're like, well, pneumonia and the spiritual meaning or significance of that physical ailment, because every physical ailment begins in the mind, story in the mind, and emotion in the mind, is repressed grief. And as soon as I heard it, I knew exactly what that was. Because when the separation happened and when the members of my team left, I went into this mode of I am not going to be somebody that is upset, that is disempowered, that doesn't, I'm not going to be somebody that gets taken off my course in any way. I'm just going to pull my big girl panties up and just move forward. And so I started walking every day, poured myself into my business. And I did not look at, face, or feel any of the emotions related to the grief of both of those situations. I did not let them come up. And so what happened was, because I did not do that, it led me to lung surgery, pneumonia, all of those things. And so what I have actually learned since that time and what that awareness was for me was that it's not about being high vibe. It's not about just being happy, because you're not going to work through the emotions and they're going to stay dormant in the body. They're going to stay repressed and they will impact your manifestations down the road eventually. So then what do we do then? The manifestation world says that we have to be very, very happy. We have to be very, very positive. Like attracts like. So you have to be a happy person 24/7 to manifest happiness, to manifest money, to manifest success. But that isn't true, because even if we look to Some of the most successful people in the world, people that have a lot of money, they aren't all the happiest, most positive people you've ever met in your life. And so is it true that the happiness frequency manifests the money frequency? No, because then all happy people would be very, very wealthy people. But we have happy people that are not wealthy, and then we have wealthy people that are not happy. So we know that those two things don't necessarily cause one another. So what does cause it then? If it's not the vibration that you're in, the emotion that you're holding that day, it's the feeling of who you are. So let me put it this way. I can be an empowered woman, a strong woman, a disciplined woman, a committed woman. I can be a woman who believes in herself, who is fearless, who is bold, who is daring, who takes big, big risks and moves in certainty and knowing of herself. But I can also be that woman and be grieving a loss in my life and be sad. So it is two very different things to say. Right now, I'm having a sad moment while being an empowered woman versus I'm having a sad moment and now I'm becoming a sad woman. That's taking on the identity of sadness. It's actually taking the emotion that you're feeling in the moment and making it actually be who you are. And so this is where, for me, it's not about being high vibe and happy 24/7, but it's about being the grandest version of myself 24/7, being the elevated version of me, being empowered, being safe, being secure, being strong, being self-aware, being courageous, and knowing that no matter what, I am going to experience the fullness of my human. And the fullness of my human, she experiences sadness, frustration, overwhelm, disappointment, potentially anger, but I don't let them impact the identity and self-concept of who I am in that moment. So when I am sad, I'm still empowered KCB having a sad moment. The other thing I just want you to consider too with manifestation. So if you're somebody that is listening to this podcast episode and you're like, oh, I want to manifest better relationships, more money. I want millions of dollars. I want a very successful business, properties all over the world, all these fantastic things. We are never going to get to a place where we will never experience a negative emotion again. That is not the reality of this human experience. So even when you have millions, billions of dollars, you're still going to lose people in your life. You're still going to have times where your physical body is going to feel unwell. You might still have conflict. There might be natural disasters in the world that impact you negatively. And so we aren't seeking to never feel emotions again and to always be happy. What we're actually seeking is a place where we understand our emotions, we feel the whole range of our emotions, and that we get to choose our emotions and how long they stay and how long we experience them for. So what I can tell you now, the past 3 years since that surgery, I have given my human experience and her full range of emotions attention. I have let her be real and let her be honest. I actually have a journal that I started after my surgery, and it was called, I wrote on the top of the page, Kathleen, this journal is for you to experience the fullness of your human. She is worthy, she is valuable, she is important, and you must allow her to come through. So this is where I started journaling my feelings. So I started journaling, I feel this today, and the story behind the feeling is this. So I feel this because this happened, or I feel this because this person said this to me, or whatever else. And I started to notice patterns, and I started to notice why I would feel some way and why I would feel other ways, what the triggers were, what the awarenesses were, what the understandings were. And I started to learn way more about myself and my patterns with feeling. And what I can tell you is I'm a very emotional woman. So I experience emotions very, very strongly and very, very powerfully. So if I'm sad, I am like sad. If I'm happy, I am like happy. You know, I really, really experience the full depth. But what I can tell you that's really, really changed is that I don't hold it for long. So if I am in a negative vibration, a negative feeling of sadness, I can actually move that energy very, very quickly now. Whereas before I would hold something for like days, weeks, or that sadness would just take over my identity fully. So Your emotional experience, that part of you that is riding those waves of your emotional state, will always be there. But if you have this fear that you can't manifest if you're having a sad moment, or you can't manifest if you're not always high vibe, you're not always positive, you're going to be so caught up in trying to pretend to be happy, to try to artificially manifest this positivity in your life, that you're likely going to be suppressing and repressing emotions that really, really need to just be moved up and through the body and out of you to let them go instead of keeping them repressed in the body. One of the things that I do with my emotions, and I've actually been teaching my daughter Reagan how to do this because she's a little more emotional like I am. So one of the things that we do is we want to make sure that we identify what the emotion is. So in my journal, I started writing, I feel this, and I would actually give the emotion a word. And so with Reagan, she's 10 years old, and she's my little baby, and she experiences her emotions, and she doesn't necessarily want to talk about them. So one of the things that I've been really doing with her is just asking her, so what are we going to call this emotion today? What is the name in which we're going to give this? And then she gives it a name, and then I say, okay, we've identified it. And then the next question to ask yourself then is, okay, but where is that emotion coming from? So why do I feel sad? Why do I feel angry? Why do I feel frustrated? Why do I feel disappointed? Where does that feeling actually come from? And then we realize the story with which we tell ourselves. And then you can start to uncover it. But one of the things that has worked so well with Reagan and I, and she actually helped me through this, we, for those of you that have been following me for a long time, you know how much I love Malibu, and I've spent the past 2.5 years going to Malibu consistently, and I have a couple of properties that I stay there all the time. And one of my absolute favorite properties on La Costa Beach has burned down to the ground last week in the Palisades fire. And so last week I had this sadness feeling showing up throughout the days, and it was just kind of like lingering about, you know, what is the future hold for Malibu, for me, for my dream of being there, all these things, and it was just lack of clarity, and then the sadness behind, you know, seeing all these people losing their houses and their properties, and being grateful and thankful that I didn't own one there yet, but I still want to own one there. So what does that mean for that? And just feeling the range of emotions. So Reagan came up to me and she said, Mommy, do you need to go and have a good cry? And I said, you know what? I do. So she said, I'm here. And she just sat there with me while I cried, and she just put her hand on my shoulder. And she just said, I'm here, Mommy. Just let it all out. Because that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been working through with her emotions. Is I say to her, if you need to go let that out, if you need to release it, move it out of the body, let's go do it. So in what ways can we facilitate that? So for her, she likes to go sit by herself in her room. So one time she went into her room and screamed into her pillow. Another time she went outside and yelled outside a little bit. Another time she went and let her tears out and came back and said, I feel better. So even as adults, like these are the same things that we should be really looking at, is what are the ways that we can allow the emotion to move to and through our body and not let it sit. And I got to tell you, after that good cry with Reagan, I felt this weight lifted. I felt so good that I let it move through. And, you know, she said, okay, Mommy, do you feel better now? And I said, actually, I do. She said, I'm always here to help you let your cries out. No matter who you are and how emotional you are, I think that there is so much importance in allowing the emotion to move through you. And even if you're not a crier, like, I cry over everything. I watch shows, TV shows, I cry. You tell me a sad story, I'll cry about it. Watching proposals or babies be born, tears are streaming. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I tap into my emotional state in that way. It's helped me to manifest for sure. But even if that's not you, what are the ways you could identify your emotion and allow that emotion to move through so it doesn't stay stale and sitting and repressed in the body? The other thing about manifestation that's so beautiful is that the vibration with which we hold on the most dominant feeling of that day. So let's say in a 24-hour period, what's the feeling of you that you were in? And so if you are grieving the loss of someone in your life, let's say, but you're maintaining that dominant feeling of being an empowered individual, a strong individual, a powerful individual, the grieving of the loss is not going to cancel out all the good work you're doing over here. And the fear that that could be the case actually creates in itself. So if you're afraid that a negative emotion showing up in you is going to manifest bad, it will manifest. because it becomes the sponsoring thought. So I just tell myself in those moments, nope, I am a strong, empowered woman who is having a sad moment right now, and I'm still manifesting. And I'm holding the duality of the two experiences at the same time. We can be extremely happy and extremely sad in the same moment. We can be celebrating things. Last week, I was so sad about what was happening in Malibu and in LA with the fires, moving my trip and all that kind of stuff. I felt so much sadness there. But then at the same time, my book goes bestseller for 6 days in a row, and my retreat sells out within, 1 hour. We release more spots and it sells out within 1 hour. So there's the sadness, but there's the celebration at the same time. And so we can hold both of those experiences. But the most important thing is to ask yourself, which one am I dominantly being? So if you are adopting a state of being of sadness, if you are adopting a state of being of insecurity, of overwhelm, of stress, of frustration, of disappointment in yourself, that's not just a fleeting emotion, that's an identity, and that will manifest. So reprogram the subconscious mind, the self-identity, and the concept to create a version of you that is very, very strong and empowered, and then allow that empowered, strong version of you to ride the waves of their emotional state. And that is how you manifest while still experiencing the wholeness of your human. I hope that this helps. I hope that you can start to realize that your emotions are important. They matter. They make a difference in your life. And you can have anything you want in your life, and you can manifest these great things. But it's also important for you to manifest the resilience and the emotional regulation of the version of you in your life. And do not forget, please, that the limit does not exist.